I'm Juju Chang in New York, and with me today is Lee Woodruff, author of Perfectly Imperfect, sort of the theme of Moms Get Real, and Beth Feldman, who's from RollMommy.com. And the topic today, of course, is when grandparents are backseat parents.
Or when they go rogue, like my mother-in-law, smoking in the basement.
All right, so let's bring in an expert, a family therapist. Terry Real is the founder of the Relational Life Institute and joins us from Minneapolis. Welcome, Terry.
Hey, Juju, how you doing?
I'm fine. I want you to weigh in on this subject. First of all, sometimes understanding why this gets to us helps us, deal with it. Why do parents, and especially mothers, get so upset when grandparents or in-laws get involved?
Well, first of all, telling somebody how to parent their child has got to be one of the most sort of intrusive, intimate. It's like telling a guy how to build a fire or telling somebody how to have sex. I mean, your kids are your kids. They're your most precious possession. And, you don't, unsolicited advice around your parenting is, by and large, not welcome. It's not just grandparents. If your girlfriends tell you how to raise your kid or criticize you, that's usually not welcome either. But particularly if it comes from mom and dad, it's a pretty charged issue.
And yet, grandparents are often the most supportive and most helpful part of the village that's helping to raise this child, right?
Yeah, they can be. It cuts both ways. But you have those moments where mom is telling you to do something and she's always told you to do something and you're recreating that relationship. Or if you've had bad experiences with your parents and you're watching them do unto your child some of what they did unto you, that can be really rough. And so there are a lot of hot buttons.
Yeah.
What about especially when you're the daughter-in-law, for example, and you've got the mother-in-law component coming in? I feel like a lot of the stuff that goes on with my own children is her recreating her vision of it's playing out stuff that she has with her own son, her little baby, her precious little, wonder child. So of course we can give them snacks. And
that precious little child is your husband.
Right. There's no anger there, Terry, at all. All right, just want you to know. Yeah.
Well, this is very important, though. I say this with all sorts of issues. You should not be dealing in a conflictual basis with your mother-in-law. That is really, you should pass that one over to your husband. Blood deals with blood. So if you have a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law who are screaming at each other, the person I blame is the absentee husband. You talk to him and you let him deal with her.
All right, so what about, for me, now that I have 3 children, I think I have some perspective, Terry. With my first child, I have to say, I think I was insufferable. And I would tell my mother, Mom, you don't know what, no, Mom, back off, Mom. But Mom, meanwhile, had raised 5 kids and knew pretty much what she was doing. And so do you think sometimes we're just, with our first children especially, we're just too controlling?
We're absolutely too controlling. I mean, there's a joke. I have 2 kids, and like the first year of life, I think we have 50 cases of VHS tape, and the second one is I think he's got 1 tape for his entire career. So yeah, we hover. One of my parents said, "I'm not a hover mother. I'm a Black Hawk Down mother."
Oh, wow.
And it must be difficult for the grandparents to watch, but out. Let them make their own. You need to make your own mistakes. You need to learn, and advice about your parenting is just not usually a very welcome thing.
Well, and I have a situation where I do look to my mom for a lot of advice, and especially now my daughter's a tween, and we're asking, I go to my mom and even want my mom to talk to her, but then my mother-in-law gets in and she may have a conflicting opinion. So what happens when the mother-in-laws don't agree?
Well, you have to be clear about whose rules prevail where. So, if it's your house, basically it's your rules. But, I have a saying, grandparents are here on earth to spoil your children. That's their job. That's what they're supposed to be doing. So, they're tricky negotiations. Like if it's an overnight at grandma's house and you're used to putting the kid to bed by 7 and the kid doesn't go to bed until 9, that's not the end of the world. So it has to do with how involved are the grandparents? Are they in your territory? Is your child in their territory? Whose rules prevail under what circumstances? There's a lot to negotiate.
Okay, Terry, let's say there's a mom out there who's watching this and she's been taking it and taking it and taking it and really fed up, and she's about to go and have that talk thanks to you. How would you arm her for that talk?
Mom, I really appreciate everything that you're doing, and I need to make my own mistakes. So even if you're right, it doesn't work for me. When you have our kids over at your house, God bless, do it your way. But when you're here, if I say no sugar, I don't want you, I don't want you feeding lollipops to my kids on the sly. You got to obey the rules.
So be nice and gentle, but firm.
Firm and loving, and don't be afraid to set limits. Here's the thing that's really important. If you're the mom, you have the kids, you have all the power. And if you're looking at your parents and you're remembering when you were a kid, maybe you're intimidated, maybe you're afraid to hurt their feelings, don't worry about any of that. You just stand up, set appropriate limits, be loving, be firm, and they'll be fine.
And do you just let go of the old tensions, the ones that were bubbling up from your old childhood, or do you try to use this as an opportunity to resolve some of those conflicts?
Yeah, no, don't.
Juju, that's a lot.
Let go under the bridge.
You don't want your child to be a stand-in for you. You want the issues between grandmom and your child to be as clean as possible. Don't bring your own stuff into it at that point. The only real issue is control. And if you have a very controlling mom and she becomes a very controlling grandmom, then you're going to have to stand up to her, and perhaps in ways you didn't when you were a kid, but you're a big grown-up now.
Terry, I would imagine that also means trying to stay as positive as you can about grandparents and not letting your children hear you slip and say something negative or let your frustration show through.
No, you don't want your frustrations to show. You want these conversations to be off on the side, just like you would with your husband. You don't want to be arguing in front of the kids. And you want to be very, very positive, but it's sort of like, the velvet glove. You're very positive in the frame, but you deliver your payload about what does or doesn't happen, and you're not shy about that.
I love the velvet glove. I call Terry the velvet pickaxe, just so you know.
Wow.
Smooth but very precise, like a sledgehammer. And Terry, talk about reframing this idea that what you said is that a grandparent's job is to spoil. And so if you just see it in that way and not get as bent out of shape about it, would that help?
Yeah, I think it's true. Part of what you have to let go of is that you and your mom and dad are going to agree about it all. You kind of want their approval still, but they can have their own rules, they can have their own values, and they can be different from yours. And there's something wonderful for a kid. I remember in my own childhood going over grandma's house and just getting spoiled rotten.
And having a different
That's okay if it's occasional.
Yeah.
That's okay if it's occasional.
Right, as long as it's not.
It's a different deal if they're over every afternoon.
Right, or doing a pick-up grandma, as I like to say. All right, Terry, the pickaxe, velvet teen pickaxe, that is. Terry Real, thanks for the great advice, as always.
Good advice.
Beth Lee,
you're welcome.
Any final closing thoughts from you?
I see with my own kids on 3 and 4, I've relaxed so much more, like you said. Let it go. Let them indulge. There's always a payback on my end. They babysit the kids.
Terry's like, they're listening to me.
Terry, yes.
And
got to me.
Mine are going to be with me tonight for my son's outdoor movie birthday. So everybody's getting along. And
great.
Insect repellent.
Okay. Insect repellent.
And lots of alcohol.
Thank you both for joining me, and Terry as well. That's all the time we have for today. Don't forget, you can follow me on Twitter at JujuChangABC, and we'll see you next time on Moms Get Real.